Hello, my name is Henrik and I work at LeanSwift. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install the LeanSwift eLink product on a Windows server. eLink is platform independent and you can install it also on Linux, but in this video I will cover only the Windows installation procedure. As noted, one of the requirements to install eLink is to have a server to install it on. Quite simple perhaps, but when it comes to this server, there are two very important things to note. Number one, it must be a public-facing server. This is because the LeanSwift Marketplace Cloud Service must be able to connect to your eLink instance on the server from the outside. And please note that only a single port needs to be open in the company firewall to the server. Also note that all traffic across this port will be encrypted using SSL as authenticated using Open Authentication Protocol, so you're quite safe. For example, I am going to use port 8443, which is the default port that we use, but eLink can run on any port. For my example, I will use the default. Number two, the other thing to note is that the server also needs to be privately connected to your M3 environment. This means the M3 database server, API ports, IDM if you're using that, your company mail server, and so on. And such a server that is partly public and partly private, governed by both private and public network rules, is best placed in what's called the network DMZ, demilitarized zone. Now, if you don't know what that means, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that you properly convey these two requirements to your network department. That is, you need a server that is publicly accessible via a port, 8443 in my example, and that it internally can access the M3 servers. So also suggest to them that the server should be placed in the company DMZ. They should know what you talk about. If you don't let them know both of these requirements, they will most likely give you a server that is not going to work for you. So back to me. I asked our network admin and he produced a virtual server for me running in our AWS cloud. And that is what you can see here in the background and what I am going to use for my demo. So let's begin. The first thing I have to do is make sure that Java is installed on my server before proceeding. Since this is a new server, I know for a fact that Java is not installed. So let's get that done. Let's go to oracle.com and you can browse your way to Java SE downloads, and I'm going to pick the JDK to download, Java SE.7. Let's scroll down here, you accept any terms, etc. and Windows x64. That is the architecture on the server that I am on, so this is the file that I will download. Now let's not sit here and wait for that, but I've already prepared that one. So once you've downloaded it, show up in your downloads directory. Execute, run. There we go. Next. So, a short comment on the install path. Sometimes your install path will, for example, for the 32-bit, it would have contained parentheses x86 parentheses. And the parentheses here in the path will cause problems later on here when we execute some bat files in Windows. So Windows specific problem with the path, so let's just avoid that. Also, I don't like when these paths have blank spaces in them because it makes things complicated generally. So let's just make it simple. Let's remove the need for all of that by just changing the path to something simple. All right, next. Now we're avoiding a lot of problems that we might later run into. For us to change here, and I just put it all in C-Java. Java is installed. There's one more thing that I want to do before I proceed though, and that is set the environment variable for Java_home. An environment variable is something in Windows that lets scripts and applications pick up on a variable to see where something is installed, in this case Java. So we need that to point to our Java installation, which is quite simply in the JDK right there. So this is our path. I'm just going to copy this path. Start menu. We right click this PC. We pick properties. Takes us to the control panel and advanced system settings. Another pop-up window, and there we have a button called environment variables. Just press that button. In the system variables section down here, we hit new, type Java _home, case sensitive, and then we paste our path. Okay. Let's also quickly verify that Java installed all right. So let's fire up the start menu. And here, just simply type cmd. And this is the command prompt in Windows. We run it. And Java dash version. There we go. Java is installed and fully functional. Proceed with eLink installation. So to install eLink, we must first download eLink. So let's go back to our browser. Let's visit LeanSwiftMarketplace.com and let us log in to our account or register one in case you don't have one. This is a company account. This is my account. So now I will visit the enable page, which contains the eLink product. And here is the eLink Community Edition, which is available for free. Test this entire installation without spending any money. We'll add it to cart, and there we have. And place the order, and well, I can just click here. So under my account, I will go to my downloadable products. Is a long list of whatever you've downloaded, and eLink being, as you can see, there's multiple links here, and in case you have ordered it multiple times, you want to make sure that you pick the latest one. So we have the latest version. There are 3 different versions available for us. This is something called eLink CE 4.2 with Tomcat Windows and with Tomcat Linux. Now this Windows is a prepackaged install for Windows, and with Linux is a prepackaged install for Linux, and eLink without anything at the end here is simply a var file. So for example, if you had your own Apache Tomcat or you wanted to install Apache Tomcat on your own, you can do that, and you can also then just download the var file and deploy it in your Tomcat. But I'm not going to do that because that's more configuration steps and technical know-how than this guide will cover. So we will simply use the pre-packaged Tomcat. Click it and it will start to download. There we go. Go to our downloads directory and here's our zip file. Now just simply extract it. Let's just use some sort of path. This is the installation path where you want it, so you can set it to something on the server. Again, I'm using a path without blank spaces or characters in it, so it makes for a simple install. There we go. At this point, it has been installed, or at least extracted. Now I'm going to go back to the marketplace site. We're going to go back to the product details site for eLink, and I'd like to point you at the view instructions link here. That will simply open the installation instructions for eLink. Just a quick guide for you to follow. and it'll contain some easy troubleshooting in case things go wrong. And we try to keep this as up to date and based on customer feedback to make it as easy as possible for you. So now I'm going to try to follow the instructions. At this point, I have downloaded my Windows file in a zip format, so that's okay. Go to the location and find the server.xml file. All right, here's our installation path. Conf server.xml. You can open it in a text editor of your choice. I'm going to pick Notepad++. Scroll down until we find this key store file that they were talking about. And there it is. It said, let's copy this guy. Let's go to the file again. Replace that with the path. And while we're in here, we can also have a look at, you can see here it says port 8443. This is where you would change ports if you wanted to run on your own custom port. However, I'm not going to touch that right now. 8443 is perfect for me. File is saved. That step is done. What's the next step? Installing the Tomcat as a service. In order for me to have eLink start as a service and run in the background so I don't have to be logged in to my Windows session here to run it, I have to install it as a service under Windows. Alright, let's go back to our command prompt. That's cd our way into the eLink installation path, specifically to the bin catalog, and then type service.bat install, and then the name that I want to give my service, which let's call it Tomcat 7. Now this is where you would have a problem with parentheses and similar things in your path, but right now it says it has been installed. All right. Let's see. And there we have it as a Windows server. Now, here's another pro tip. Let's pause, go into our Tomcat installation path again, find the bin folder. In here you should find a file called tomcat7w.exe. Let's run that. This will open up a smaller window where we can start our service, stop our service, and change the service type. So let's start by doing that automatic. That seems, we want it to start when the server starts, not triggered manually. Let's also look specifically at the Java tab. Here, there's something called initial memory pool and maximum memory pool. Ideally, I would want to set this to somewhere in the range of 4 to 8 gigabytes. Now, the server that I'm on only actually has 1 gigabyte of memory, so obviously I can't exceed that. For a development environment, I would say 4 gigabyte, and for a production environment, I would say 8 gigabytes and up. 16 certainly won't hurt, but let's say 512, because that's what I have. Well, half of what I have. And another slight trick here is to set both initial and maximum to the same thing. Even if that may seem strange, it will actually let the Tomcat do less memory reallocation. So a slight performance trick. Let's keep it at that. Right, let's start the service. Started. Perfect. It is now time to connect LeanSwift Marketplace to our eLink installation. So let's go back to LeanSwift Marketplace, my account, and eLink config pages. Now this is the first time I am in here, everything is empty. I have to type in the host name of my eLink server, and this is the public address of the server. So I know for a fact this is it. Just leaving eLink name here exactly as that, and then I type in 8443, and I'm going to leave this blank. Now I'm scrolling down and I'm going to hit save. I am sure, let's go. Voila. And how do I know it worked? Well, I got a green message up here, but more importantly, down here, you can now see that two properties have shown up where your URL is like this, and the version you have installed of eLink is 4.2.0. That means the marketplace have now established connection with eLink instance, and it has retrieved the version installed. That's all that it has done so far. Now we have a functioning eLink installation running on the server, and we have connections from Marketplace to eLink. And I'd like to just real quickly make a note about this drop down here that we have just selected the value eLink C4.2. This is the only value in it right now, but as more versions of eLink becomes available on Marketplace, you'll have to pay a little bit attention to what value you have in this dropdown, as it should match the version that you installed on your server. Our eLink is running, but it is also not connected to M3 yet. So what we have to do is configure it to connect to our M3 environment as well. Now, to do this, there's a button up here that says retrieve configuration, because so far we've only established a connection. Now what we're going to do is hit the retrieve configuration button, and configuration retrieved successfully. And if we scroll down, it has some values in API settings, database settings, and so on. When you do this the first time, there will be values here which says dummy and localhost, and just values that are obviously not for your environment, but some sort of dummy values. So all you need to do is fill it out with your respective values that's relevant for your environment. And as you can see here, I've already pre-configured it a little bit, but let's go through the values. The database settings, this is the host name of your M3 database. In this case, it's a SQL, so the port's running on the default port. This user here is a database SQL user, so keep that in mind. Then it's the database name and the schema name in M3, pretty standard for database connection. And then you have the API settings, which is usually the business engine and a port. And here you have a Smart Office user or a Service API user. I'm just using my personal user here in our M3. So now, when I've filled these out, I will scroll all the way down. I hit save. I confirm save. And now eLink settings have been updated successfully in my instance. If I want to test my database and my API connection, I can press the test button, and it'll show up test connection success. If I, for example, have something that is incorrect, let's just create an incorrect value here again, and then hit save and run a test connection again. It is now running some database tests and some API tests to verify the connections from eLink to M3. Test connection failed because of the API port is not correct, so the API settings failed. So let's update it to the correct one. And I'd like to point out here that, as you can see, the password field is empty, it's not being displayed here. It is by design. We are not even retrieving your passwords because you may not want to update them. So we don't need to retrieve them. If you type something in this field and hit save, we will update the password, but we will not display any passwords for you once they are in the configuration of eLink. So if those fields are blank, don't worry about it we don't actually retrieve them. And now I've updated my configuration again. I can run test connection success. So there we are. Let's also for a second speak about these settings and the marketplace, because we are not actually storing none of the settings in our marketplace cloud service. These are only stored in your eLink instance, and they're displayed here, but if I log out, they're cleared out of the session. So just to show you, if I log out of my account and then I will log back in. We go again to our eLink config page. So you can see there is nothing. I have to go in here, locate the retrieve configuration button, and once I press it, now I've loaded up my values here so I can run a config and then store my values again.